Hello there, and welcome to Roadshow News Recap. I am reviews editor Craig Cole, and today we are talking all about the brand new Mercedes-Benz EQS all-electric luxury sedan.
And I am news editor Sean Szymkowski. Craig, what do you think about this thing?
I don't know. We're going to talk all about it on today's show, Sean. How are you doing on this wonderful Friday?
I'm doing great. Did you enjoy your fruit seminar last week? Is that what you were doing?
Yes, I was giving a lecture on stone fruit, as I think you guys indicated in the show. Unfortunately, I could not attend last Friday, but I am back. And, we're not here to talk about cherries or plums or peaches or apriums. We're talking about Mercedes-Benz EQS, which is unquestionably the biggest car-related news story to come out during the past week. Evan, our good producer, my friend, why don't you show the people what this vehicle looks like? Evan, that's a 96 Ford Taurus. Come on. That's not right.
Yeah, Evan, why don't you actually show us the car? Oh, that's a bar of soap.
Yeah, no wonder this guy gets paid in canned goods. Come on, man.
Oh, well, it's two-tone like the EQS, but that's not it either, is it, Craig?
Is that a walrus? You you two-tone painted a walrus? Come on.
All right, let's actually see it. Oh, there it is. There. The EQS. It is a slippery-looking thing.
Kind of does look like a bar of soap. Yeah, it kind of does look like a bar of soap. But aerodynamics, there's a reason, right?
Yes, there is a reason, Craig. This is the most aerodynamic production car, so says Mercedes, and it has the numbers to back it up. They're claiming a drag coefficient of 0.20, which just undercuts the Tesla Model S and the Lucid Air,
which are very slippery cars in their own right. So obviously, with an EV, you need that aerodynamics to maximize the driving range. And they're calling this a one-bow roofline, sort of just a single arc across the whole vehicle. And it's kind of a cool idea, although I don't necessarily love the overall looks of this car. There's a lot more to talk about here, of course. But what do you think of the styling, Sean?
Yeah, to be clear, we're poking fun at it because I think Craig and I agree that there are some far more attractive electric vehicles coming or are out today. It's not bad looking by any means, but if you look up the EQS concept, this is a bit of a far cry from what they were teasing this car it was going to look like. But yeah, it's all about aerodynamics here. I'd say function followed form. Just that greenhouse it's pretty bulbous. It's got a very low hood line there, and that is all about aerodynamics, Craig.
Absolutely. It's also, I mentioned that one bow roof line, but there's cab forward design here, which sounds pretty familiar to something else from years ago, doesn't it, Sean?
Oh yeah, Craig, you know what that is? That is kind of like Daimler Chrysler 2.0. Do you want to explain why in this weird link we found earlier this week?
Right. Well, let's remember like the LH cars that Chrysler had like in the early 90s and through to the 2000s. They were like the Intrepid and the Chrysler Concorde. They all had what they called cab forward design. They intended to really maximize the interior space in those vehicles. And it worked. They had very generous cabins, but it's interesting to see that Mercedes-Benz is now referencing cab forward design with this new concept. It's kind of like brings to mind Daimler Chrysler 2.0 almost. In a joking way, of course.
Yeah, of course, in a joking way. We thought that connection was pretty funny. And in no way is the EQS a Dodge Intrepid. We can promise
Absolutely
you that.
Not. Yes, 100%. So if you are just joining us, welcome to Roadshow News Recap, where we discuss and dissect the most important car-related story of the past week. Now, you can join us for the live broadcast of this program every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on the Roadshow YouTube channel. And of course, if you're watching live, drop your questions or comments in the chat box, and we will try to address those as the show goes on. Of course, if you're viewing the recorded version, well, thank you. but you might want to try a little bit harder next time to watch the live show. Honestly, I think you're really going to enjoy it. So Sean and I are talking all about the new Mercedes-Benz EQS all-electric luxury sedan, but keep watching because we ran a few polls out there on the Roadshow social media channels asking exactly what you guys think of this car, and we will get to those results a little bit later. Plus, there are a few other news stories worth checking out. We've got Audi that unveiled a couple new EVs, and Ford is going to let you drive with a suspended license. I mean, they're going to let you drive with no hands, but Sean, back to the EQS.
Oh boy, can't wait to hear about driving with a suspended license. No, just kidding. the EQS. Well, let's dive into some technical specs on this, Craig. Right now, Mercedes for the US is talking about a 107.8 kilowatt hour battery. There's going to be a rear-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive version of this car when it launches. It's first going to launch in a Edition 1 trim, and we're looking at the rear-wheel drive, 329 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. Mercedes-Benz says that's going to be good for 5.5 seconds, 0 to 60. If you bump up to the all-wheel drive, that's going to be 516 horsepower, 611 pound-feet of torque, 4.1 seconds, 0 to 60. I don't think people buying an EQS will care that the car is this quick or this fast, but like any EV, all of that power is going to come on right away. Editor-in-chief Tim Stevens actually drove this car in New York City earlier this week, and if you go watch that video, watch his neck snap back when he hits the accelerator. It's hilariously jarring to watch, Craig.
That's the advantage of EVs, especially ones with this much horsepower and torque. I mean, you get that instant response. There's no waiting for a transmission to downshift, for the throttle plate to open, for the cam phasers to adjust. You hit the accelerator, the car immediately goes. That's the big advantage of the EV. So let me ask you this, Sean, in all seriousness, design-wise, what's your opinion of this EQS?
Yeah, overall, it's not my favorite. I think, like I said earlier, there are some more attractive electric vehicles coming, but it's not bad. And in fact, the more I've looked at it, and despite our soap comparisons, which we poked fun at a little bit, it's actually not a bad looking car. I especially like that front end. There's something refreshing about an electric vehicle that isn't trying too hard. You know, it doesn't need to look like a spaceship or a rocket ship. Like, this just looks like a luxury car. And I think that's kind of Mercedes-Benz's meal ticket. I mean, they're known for the S-Class. This is an electric S-Class. It complements the S-Class with the internal combustion engine. So in that respect, I think they've done an excellent job creating something for those kinds of people that might be looking for this car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would agree with a lot of what you said there, Sean. The design is a bit generic, but in the luxury space, it tends to be very conservative. So there isn't often a lot of groundbreaking design there necessarily. And while I think the EQS is pretty generic, I do love that two-tone paint. That's like a retro feature. Used to have that a lot in the 50s. And I think it's something that should come back because it can look really sharp when it's done properly. Just glancing at the chat right quick. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the chat room. But Jeff McManigal, I believe is how you say his name, says it looks like an Oldsmobile. Yeah, I'm not so sure if that's a compliment. But we did.
What era Oldsmobile are we talking about?
That is the question. Is it an Alero or is it like a Rocket 88? Because there's a big difference there.
Yeah.
But we actually posed that question on the Roadshow socials. That's hard to say. Roadshow socials. And we asked just followers of our stuff, do you like this car? Evan, do you have those results? We can put them up on screen. So there you go.
Okay.
What do you think of the new electric Mercedes-Benz USA EQS luxury sedan? And 67% of folks that responded said they loved it. Only 33% said no thanks. And that's about what I would have expected for this. Sean?
Yeah, I don't think it's surprising because it really isn't a bad looking car. I think we're giving it a little bit of a hard time because Mercedes made some big promises with the concept car, and the concept car looked, like straight out of Tron. And here we have the EQS or the Tesla Model S, which is a second poll. We asked our readers if we can pull those results back up, Evan. Oh, nope, we just lost them. That's okay. But anyway,
Oh, we can get to those a little bit later.
Oh, nope, they're back. And there we have there. Looks like the Mercedes is just edging out the Tesla there. Kind of surprising. I thought maybe the loyal Tesla fan base would be all over the Model S, Craig.
You mean cult?
Ooh, I didn't go there. You did. Send him the angry carrier pigeons.
Yes. And then we compared it to the Lucid Air as well. And again, a narrow advantage for the Mercedes, but very close. Closer than I might have expected.
Yeah, I think that bodes well for Mercedes, just gauging, our followers, people from the general public, because I think the Lucid is drop dead gorgeous. I think that's what a second generation Model S should have looked like.
Yes, there's a lot of interesting details to that Lucid. As for the EQS, though, it's got a very low hood. The overhangs on each end of the car are quite short. Here it's got active grille shutters. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, this was all done in the name of aerodynamics to make this thing as slippery and as sleek as possible. Even the door handles pop out when you go to open the car, which is pretty cool. I know that's something we've seen on some Jaguar Land Rover products before, but it's a very cool little touch. And
yeah, speaking of the door handles, Craig, you can talk to this car and it will open the doors for you.
Yes, that's a very clever feature that they're offering on it. So you can have the car open the doors or close them automatically for you. Apparently, it will do that when you're even in the car. It'll know who's talking to it and what door is open based on who's sitting where, and it can close them, which is like just crazy. I mean, but that's the definition of luxury, not having to do things for yourself, right?
Yeah, I believe, isn't there an old saying? It's like luxury is giving time back to somebody. For a moment, I don't have to worry about closing my door. It's something else I'm focused on instead. The car recognizes you're approaching as the owner. It opens the door for you to get into the driver's seat. And then all you do is tap the brake pedal and it it closes the door behind you. I hope it doesn't slam. That'd be scary.
I would be interested to see that, though. Just wham!
God, no, please.
Yeah. Size-wise, they're saying this is going to be between a short and long wheelbase S-Class, and it's going to be built on its own unique EV architecture. No interior dimensions are available just yet. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Mercedes says this is the first EV on the dedicated MEA platform. Mercedes has kind of shuffled its EV plans around for the US a couple times. It was supposed to be the EQC crossover, was going to launch the EQ EV brand here in the US, and then they delayed that, and then they said, never mind, we're going to do the EQS. And quite frankly, I think the EQS was the better move. This is much more of a statement vehicle, which I think any automaker jumping into this space, that's what they got to do. I mean, that's why we're seeing GM with the Hummer EV SUV and the pickup truck. Countless other automakers, what they have coming, Ford with the Mustang Mach-E, if they haven't done EVs before. You want people to talk about these cars. And I mean, yes, the EQS it's a conversation piece. It's just chock full of technology. And we'll talk about why for the interior in a moment with that giant hyperscreen.
Absolutely. Just glancing at the chat right now, SBM Abu Saeed says, hi, everybody. Well, hello to you, and thank you for watching. Dhan219 comments, the Tesla looks better, but the EQS has a better interior. I can be on board with that comment.
Yeah, we were just talking to our colleague. No, I'm sorry, Craig, go ahead.
I was going to say, Harry says Tesla has been doing that as well with, I think, referencing some wireless Apple CarPlay in the EQS. But go ahead, Sean.
No, I was just going to say we were talking to our colleague, Daniel Golson. He runs our social media, and he saw this vehicle in person. Tim Stevens drove this car in New York City, and Daniel was just basically over the moon with how luxurious this car felt inside. And I haven't sat in it, Craig. I know you haven't sat in it either, but I have a feeling this is just kind of on that different level from what you get in, an Audi e-tron GT, or like a Tesla Model S. I mean, this is proper German luxury if you've ever been in a modern Mercedes-Benz.
Yes, 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 yes. Mercedes-Benz does a phenomenal job on its interiors, especially the last few years. And based on what I see in the photos and the video, this EQS is awesome. But we touched on some
Yeah.
technical details a few minutes ago. But for those that are just joining us right now, what are some of the speeds and feeds, Sean, of this car?
Well, inside, we're talking the Hyperscreen. It's giant, 2.6 square feet of glass. There are 3 screens, so the driver gets one in front. Then there's a massive screen in the center, and then oops, sorry, just bopped my microphone. Nope,
Oh,
punch it.
goodness. Come on.
and
Amateur
then the
hour here.
I know. That's why they don't pay me the big bucks, everybody. I'm not worth it.
The canned goods.
Yeah, sorry, the canned goods. And then the passenger also gets their own screen over there to fiddle around with some of the same settings as the center screen as well. And like I said, statement piece. I mean, if you're measuring EVs by their touch screens, this is above and beyond anything anybody else has done.
Yes, because it's the Hyperscreen. It literally goes from one A-pillar to the other. Then you've got those 3 screens that are all integrated under that single pane of glass. There's the instrument cluster. Then there's an almost 18-inch central display. And then, like you mentioned, Sean, the passenger gets another 12.3-inch panel. And the infotainment system that's running on that, they're calling it a zero-layer to the MBUX system, which they're claiming puts everything right up top, makes it very easy to access commonly used features, which I think is a great thing. Having experienced MBUX in a range of Mercedes-Benz vehicles, I've got to say, the more I use it, the less I like it. It's very pretty. It's a very pretty system. It responds very quickly. But man, is there a lot of functionality there, and it gets complicated. Doing simple things can be very challenging. So anything that their engineers can do to really streamline that and just make it more, intuitive to use, I am all for.
Yeah, absolutely. They're claiming you're never going to have to scroll to get to what you want. And this infotainment system is going to essentially learn what the driver needs most. If it's, a certain time of day and, they're getting off of work and they hop in the car and they typically put the massaging seat on, like there's going to be an option that pulls up within your hand's reach to flip the massaging seat on. So, I mean, this should be very smart. They're making big promises with it. And I hope it's very smart because it's intimidating at first. And like I was saying earlier, our colleague Daniel Golson, he admitted it is intimidating at first, but after he plucked around on the screen a little bit and tried it out, he actually really liked it. And I especially appreciate there's always fixed controls on that center display. So, HVAC controls are there and you're never going to lose those. So that's good. Always keep the essential things in the same place, especially when we're talking this much digital real estate, Craig.
Yes, 2.6 square feet of screen. That's a lot of screen. Yeah. I was chatting with Daniel. Well, yes. Could you imagine the replacement cost if one of your kids smashed the screen or something? I don't even want to think about that. But I was chatting with Daniel earlier, and because he's the only one on staff that's seen the production version of the EQS in person, and he was very impressed. He's told me the interior was nicer than the new S-Class, lots of high-end materials, lots of nice little touches. Although he did say when you get the car with the Hyperscreen, there's barely any wood trim, which he would like to see more of. And I agree. I think wood trim looks great. I love to see it in a luxury car, and I don't really see any in the EQS with the Hyperscreen. So tiny thing to observe there, but not the end of the world. This car also offers, all the driver aids you would normally expect. You can get the 360-degree camera system, automatic parking, the Burmester sound system, adaptive cruise, yada, yada, yada. But it also has a bunch of other features, crazy stuff. We talked about the automatic closing doors that you can voice activate. It also has augmented reality head-up display, a HEPA filtration system for the HVAC, for surgically clean air. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, again, this is supposed to be the S-Class of electric vehicles. And Mercedes designers and engineers, they took it to that level. I mean, this isn't a Rolls-Royce level of luxury. And who knows, maybe we'll see a Maybach version of the EQS. I think that's conceivable, where this goes even further. But they really knocked it out of the park when it comes to these crazy luxury features and just technology you would never think about needing in your car. And, some of it isn't necessary. But again, you're buying a luxury car. You expect luxuries, which leads me to the EQS's power nap mode. This car will literally invite you to go to sleep in it. The car knows when you say, I want to take a nap. If you're at an electric charging station and you got to juice the EQS up for 30 minutes or so, you put this mode on, it reclines the driver's seat back, and you can tell it to also do the passenger car if you have someone else you want to take a nap with, hopefully a close friend, not a hitchhiker or something like that.
And they will stab you while you're sleeping.
Oh boy, this is taking a dark turn, everybody. Check us out next week for our murder podcast or something.
Murder mysteries.
Yes. It will then close the shades, make everything nice and dark, turn that giant Hyperscreen into this kind of starry backdrop and something soothing. The mood lighting goes dim, and then you say, how long do I want to take a nap for? And then when that timer comes up, Mercedes says some sorts of pleasant noises start, and hopefully they're not going to pull a prank and it's like, a nuclear bomb alarm going off.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And those start playing. It starts to push, whatever the right word is. A scent comes into the cabin, some sort of luxurious scent to like stimulate your senses. And then it just opens everything up and it's like, good morning. And it's like, do we need that in a car? Well, no. But if you're buying this car, which will definitely be over six figures, that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of justifies the price. Lyndon Weeks in the chat says Model S design is tired. He's loving the innovation from Mercedes-Benz with the EQS here. So definitely a lot of innovation in this car. MJ says the comparisons are natural, but Model S and EQS are two totally different classes. The Merc S-Class is luxury. The Model S is just premium. Sean, what say you?
I think there's an argument to be made on both sides of that. I think that's actually a super valid way to look at this. I truly do, and I'm not saying this to put down anybody else making luxury EVs, but the S-Class so far is presenting itself in a separate class, while the Model S is perhaps more just like a premium luxury sedan. At the same time, the Model S, its price is probably going to come close to an EQS. And at that point, if you're spending over $100,000 on a car, if the EQS is $15,000 more, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter for the person buying that car.
It's a rounding error.
It's not going to break. Correct. It's not going to break the bank. So it's going to be interesting just in general as automakers start expanding into the EV space to see who shakes up the segments. Is Tesla going to be cross-shopped with an EQS? Well, we don't know yet. It very well could be, especially, with Tesla's take on luxury is kind of even more minimalistic. And there's an argument there that is also luxury if that's your style. Choices are never bad and competition's good for everybody.
Yes. As for driving range, they're talking, I think only one battery pack is going to be offered in the US at 107.8 kilowatt hours, which should give you a driving range on the easier WLTP cycle. They're claiming 478 miles, although on the US testing regimen, it's probably going to be closer to 400 miles, which really is a pretty good number. I mean, for a large car with all these features and some pretty good performance, because again, of the two models, you've got the EQS 450, which is sort of the base version, which they're talking about will go from 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds. But then there's the EQS 580, which has 516 horsepower, 611 pounds of torque on tap, 0 to 60 in about 4.1 seconds. So to get 400 miles of range out of that, I think is pretty good. And then, of course, you can DC fast charge at 100 kilowatts or up to 200 kilowatts, which will get you 186 miles of range in just 15 minutes. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints about those initial statistics. I mean, 400 miles of range is more than enough for any average American making a typical daily commute. Like
Yes.
any EV, even a Tesla, you have to plan your road trips ahead of time. Make sure you're finding those supercharger stations if it's a non-Tesla vehicle. Make sure you're finding whoever you charge your favorite provider is, or you have a membership with, or you have a free charging deal with. So I think they're right on the money. 300, like I've said before, seems to be the sweet spot for range. So I think the EQS is sort of future-proofed in that respect. Will we get batteries that go to 600 miles and 1,000 miles of range? Who knows? But I think 400 is a good place for this sedan to be.
It's a very good spot. Also, a quick follow-up question to that. Are we going to see any AMG versions? And from what we hear, yes, there will be AMG versions of the EQS. We don't know what that means just yet. But, Tesla's, the Model S can go 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, if I remember correctly. So even if you're doing it in 4.1 seconds, which the 580 model here does, that's still twice as long, right? So there's still room. There's still something on the table for AMG to work its magic to make it even higher performance versions of these cars. So I look forward to those.
And I look forward to that too. And I think we already got an idea, because without the AMG folks getting their hands on this, Mercedes-Benz just by itself included some very throaty soundtracks that you can turn on for this vehicle. Again, if you go watch Tim Stevens' first drive of this vehicle, he plays through them. And, one sounds like, if we stick with Oldsmobile, like an Olds 442, like flying down the drag strip or something. They sound really cool. I'd like to hear them in person. And I just think that's so interesting. Driving silent is a luxury in its own right, but to be able to flip your soundtrack as you'd like it, I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's cool.
Absolutely. So this is a good segue to what Dehan 219 in the chat was asking. Is it really going to start at $100,000? No, it sounds like it's going to start at $130,000 based on what we know right now, which is kind of a lot of money, undoubtedly. But the EQS is going to offer a lot of content, and it should be available starting, from what we understand, this fall. So not exactly tomorrow either.
Yeah, if we're looking ahead to some more affordable electric Mercedes-Benz vehicles, I wouldn't hold your breath, because Mercedes-Benz is in the business of selling luxury vehicles. But something to come in a little bit cheaper will be the EQE, which will come after this. And then there will also be an EQS SUV and then an EQE SUV. I can't stand the nomenclature. It's obnoxious, Craig. I had to be like EQS, yes. EQE. There's the EQC, and then in Europe there's an EQA, EQB. Oh man.
Oh goodness. Can we just I just wish the luxury companies were more like Lincoln. You have the Aviator, the Navigator. It's much easier to have a real name. Corsair. It's so much simpler. But
much simpler.
Yeah. That is pretty much the scoop on the EQS. Looks like it's an exciting new car from Mercedes-Benz, all-electric flagship caliber 4-door sedan. But that was not the only news that came out this week, Sean. I understand there are a few other stories the live audience and, of course, the people watching the recorded show should be made aware of. What can you tell us?
It was a very, very busy week. We had a lot of product announcements, and the EQS was just the biggest one we saw, but probably just as big, rivaling it in a totally different area of the industry, is the production Hyundai Santa Cruz was revealed. We talked about this a few weeks ago and speculated about it, and we finally got a look at the real deal. There it is right now. and it looks like a Hyundai Tucson with a truck bed, and that's what we expected, so we're not surprised. But it looks really good. I think Emmy Hall coined the term trucklet, like a chiclet piece of gum, but that just kind of encapsulates it. It's this tiny little thing. It's smaller than a Ford Ranger or a Chevy Colorado, and I think they're going to sell like crazy because Emmy said it really well that this is probably all the pickup truck that the average person needs. It's got
100%.
It's got a 4'3" long bed, and it's 4.5 feet wide.
The bed is wider than it's long, right?
Yeah. And Hyundai says you could toss Hyundai says you can toss a bicycle back here. It looks like they try to do that, and maybe it was still kind of overhanging a little bit in one of the shots, but still, I mean, you can put all of your gear in there, and you still have room in the back seat for some stuff. There's a storage space underneath the bed, and it has a drain plug even, so you could like fill it with ice and throw your favorite beverages in there if you're, at the beach or something like that. So it's got a lot of thoughtful stuff. And just while we're here looking at the interior, I don't like it. I do not like it for this truck. I love it for the Hyundai Tucson. It does not make sense in this little pickup truck here.
I think it looks kind of cool. I love the way it swoops around, on either side, kind of pushes away from the driver and from the passenger, and then it kind of pops out the center stack. I think that looks kind of cool. Now, is your problem with it, Sean, that it's not rugged enough, not trucky enough?
Yeah, I think I said when we talked about the truck a couple weeks ago, I said we hadn't seen the interior yet, and I think I was kind of hoping for more of like a Subaru kind of vibe. But I'm pretty sure I also did say I would not be surprised if the interior is nearly identical to the Hyundai Tucson. Evan's just telling me here that he thinks it's way better than a Ford Ranger's interior. I agree.
The Ranger's interior is ancient.
Yeah, the Ford Ranger is very, very old. If anyone doesn't know, it's only been on sale again here for a couple years, but it dates back years into the Australian market. They just kind of updated it for the US and brought it back. But I think it's good for who they're targeting to buy this. I would have just preferred something a little bit more rugged personally.
Well, they spent all their development dollars on the engineering underneath the vehicle, I think, so they didn't have anything left to put in a more rugged looking interior, but I think it will be fine. The Roadshow staff is over the moon about this thing. Everybody in our Slack channel was just going gaga for it, and I can't blame them. It's cool looking, and it's going to be at least, hopefully, well, probably when it comes out in a segment of one, at least until the Ford Maverick debuts. But I'm going to bet they're going to sell a lot of these things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think this truck's going to be priced right as standard, just so people know. There's an optional, we're looking at an optional engine here. It's a 2.5-liter turbocharged inline 4. That's good for 281 horsepower, but the standard engine is a 2.5-liter inline 4 minus the turbo, and you're looking at 191 horsepower. All-wheel drive is going to be standard. And we're going to have to see if it can off-road a little bit. Right now, probably not, maybe a little bit, but nothing crazy. And another stat I thought was interesting here is in that little bed back there, it can carry 660 pounds. The Honda Ridgeline, which right now we're really comparing the Ridgeline to this, even though they're not the same size, they are not direct competitors at all. The Ridgeline can carry 1,500 pounds, so more than double. So that's interesting if people really start taking a look at unibody pickup trucks. If they're shopping these, I don't need something super rugged. I could conceivably see someone looking at the Santa Cruz and being like, well, what other trucks are like this? And they stumble upon a Ridgeline, which is a little bit bigger and it's still softer and it's approachable. So I think that'll be interesting to see. And then, of course, when we see the Ford Maverick too.
Yes. It's like I've said for years about the Honda Ridgeline. It is... it'll do 90% of what 90% of truck customers need, right? Like, that's it. You don't need to commute to work in a Ram 2500 or something, unless you're going to a job site or you're a bricklayer or whatever, some other skilled trade or something. But most people, the vast majority of people, don't need the capability of even like a half-ton truck. So I think it's great news to see this sort of unibody segment growing. And they're going to sell a bunch of these, I predict, but probably not as many as the Honda Civic.
No, not at all. The Honda Civic,
but
no, yeah. Just to be clear, the Honda Civic is not a truck. Everybody, hopefully you realize that by now. But no, we saw our first shot of the 2022 Honda Civic. We'll be pulling it up here in just a moment. But the debut is coming on April 28th, and Honda ahead of time was like, hey, check it out. Here's one photo of it, and we're just going to reveal the front end. I don't understand why automakers do this. Just, keep us in suspense. I would prefer that personally. But that is our first look at it, and it's pretty darn close to the prototype they showed off this past fall. Some of us were chatting here at Roadshow, and some of us don't like that little nose part. Looks like maybe it got bopped on the nose and it's swelling.
A fat lip or something on the top there.
Yeah.
But not an unattractive car. It looks like a Civic. I mean, it looks a lot like the current car, which isn't a bad thing. It's not an unattractive little sedan, but looking forward to seeing that in person.
I'm actually excited for it. I think it's a nice clean break from what is arguably a very busy current generation Honda Civic. There's a lot going on that car. It doesn't look bad, but Honda's, I say the best Hondas that we look fondly back on are some of the cleanest styled cars that just aged so well. So I'm kind of excited to see the Civic go back to this kind of cleaner, not as busy design. But we don't have any other details on it yet, unfortunately. So you'll have to probably join us in the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about it more. But
yeah,
that's
who knows?
okay.
Maybe
because No, I was going to say that's okay because we got a ton of other cars this week, and we only had to pick a few of them, including the Q4 E-Tron, Craig.
Yeah, what's the scoop on this one, Sean?
Yeah, this is coming in two flavors. Audi showed us. There is the standard SUV, and then there's also a Sportback, a little bit of a notchier aerodynamic version, if you will. I always prefer, by the way, the SUV versions. I'm not a huge fan of that Sportback look, but that's just me. But Audi plans to sell quite a few variations of this globally, but here in the US, we're just going to get a few of them, and all of them are going to have a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. Our versions will have either 201 horsepower or 295 horsepower, and the most powerful variant will get standard Quattro all-wheel drive.
Very nice. Quattro is the Audi trademark, so good to see that they're adding that to the EVs.
Yes, and just like the EQS, Audi's range estimates are on the European WLTP range system right now. So we're probably looking at somewhere around 300 miles with the battery pack we're getting for both of them. Maybe a little bit more for the variants minus all-wheel drive because that adds another electric motor to the mix.
Absolutely. Finally, Ford's hands-free driving aid. They're calling it, it's called BlueCruise, which debuted this week.
BlueCruise.
Yeah, Blue's Clues, right? Old kids show from the 90s, if I remember correctly. But
yeah, that was a good time.
There we go. Look. Yes.
Oh,
Blue's Cruise.
Yeah, I forget what the host who does it now. I know it was Steve back in the day. I'm not sure who this is now.
I have no
good
idea.
Times.
I'm too crotchety and too old for this stuff.
Me too.
But Ford has come out, or that we've known that they're developing a hands-free driving aid a la GM Super Cruise, and it's finally set to come out, and they finally finalized a name, BlueCruise. So this is going to work on like 100,000 miles of road in the U.S. and Canada, and it's basically a hands-free driving solution, just like Super Cruise. It has driver monitoring systems basically that will track where you're looking and where your head moves so that it knows that you're still active and paying attention and not jumping in the backseat to take a nap or fixing a sandwich or something. So that's good. Of course, if you do get distracted, it will yell at you to pay attention because this is a level 2 solution. You still have to be active and involved should the system wig out, and you've got to be there to take over so the vehicle doesn't crash. But it looks like it's going to be pretty good and very interesting. They announced this a while back that they were developing it, and they've actually sold vehicles with a prep kit that's going to enable the functionality, right? So it's going to be offered initially on the 2021 F-150 and 2021 Mustang Mach-E. But vehicles on the road today already have the prep kit installed. So it's kind of interesting. You go to the dealer, you buy your new Ford, you get this options group that doesn't give you full functionality, which is kind of a hard sell, right? Hey, there's this great thing coming. You can pay for it now, but you can't use it, which is an interesting business proposition.
Well, that's basically what Tesla has done with the full self-driving for years. It's been a $10,000 option for at least 6 months now, and it's not fully ready yet. So clearly there are people who will do it. It's on them if they'd like to. But yeah, like you said, there's this option that you purchase, and then you have to pay $600 to use it for 3 years. So
yes.
That's a lot of money to spend up front, wait a little bit, and then spend $600 for 3 years.
Yes. So because again, you have to pay for that options group that gives you the hardware that enables the system. And then starting in the second half of this year, you'll be able to pay that $600 to get the BlueCruise functionality, which will then be enabled via an over-the-air update in the third quarter of the year. So somewhere toward the end of 2021, which to your point is an additional $600 on top of the other options groups that are available on the Mach-E and the F-150. So very interesting way of doing this. But Ford anticipates they're going to have 100,000 vehicles on the road in customer hands with the system before the year is out, which is a significant number, I would say, because you look at GM. I don't know off the top of my head how many vehicles they've sold with Super Cruise, but to date, it's basically only been offered in a couple Cadillac models, and I highly doubt they've sold more than 100,000 of them, despite having the system on the road for many years now. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I'd say you're probably right, just because Super Cruise launched as an exclusive Cadillac system at first. It was the CT6, and the CT6 died in like 2 years after it was around and Super Cruise became a thing. Now it's on a few more Cadillacs. The vehicle that you'd probably see it the most with, honestly, is the Escalade now, which is flying off dealership lots like they can't make enough of them. But we are going to see Super Cruise come to the Bolt EUV from Chevy. GMCs are getting it, including the Hummer EV, SUV, and pickup truck. So it's starting to expand. I'm not here to plot out strategies for automakers, but if Ford wants people to use this, they're probably doing a better job because they're putting it in the F-150 right away.
Yes, but like Super Cruise is like the killer app. It works amazingly well. It's awesome. And GM has kind of just sat on it for all this time. It's like, come on, push it out, put it in like an Equinox. You'll sell as many as you can build. But I guess they can't do that I'm sure there are many very complicated reasons why they can't do that. But, I can.
And like we said before, don't let us engineer cars. It will not be a good time. No, don't let us.
No, I can't balance my checking account, much less use CAD software or something.
Yeah.
Just glancing
Seriously.
right quick at the chat. DHon219 is saying Ford is taking a blue book from GM by mapping roads. And yes, the BlueCruise system is geofenced to limited access divided highways, about 100,000 miles worth of those in the US and Canada. So it will only function where it is enabled. And when you're on the road, when you're on a road that it is enabled, they call those blue zones. So the instrument cluster sort of turns blue, lets you know the system can be enabled, then you can engage it and drive hands-free for as long as possible. But once you get off those divided highways onto like a country 2-lane or something, well, then you've got to either drive yourself or you use the adaptive cruise control with lane centering, which is still of course, a hands-on system. So they give you
And
the
by
option,
the way,
which is kind of nice.
this is the smartest way to do it until we have LiDAR that is smart enough to actually handle autonomous driving, because the vehicle has all of the data it needs to see the road to work with its sensors that it has right now. We are nowhere near a true autonomous car yet. So right now, high definition mapping is the best way to use these kinds of systems. And that's why you see GM and now Ford saying these are true hands-free systems, because the car knows exactly because of these maps.
Yes, 100%. And you use the A word, autonomous. We ain't there yet, unfortunately.
Nope.
Don't let anyone tell you we are, because autonomous cars, they don't exist.
Or the
But
SAE
anyway,
will come to your house and hit you or
yes,
something.
they have a squad of ninja engineers that will come and they will accost you while you are sleeping. But Sean, I think that's just about it for this week's show. Thank you again for your knowledge, your analysis, and of course, all of the convivial banter. That's what I really look forward to.
Oh, me too. It's always a joy. Glad to have you back, and the pleasure is mine.
It doesn't sound like it. A little more enthusiasm next time.
Okay. I'll practice.
Take notes, please. Anyway, and thank you all so much for watching the Roadshow News Recap, where we discuss and dissect the most important automotive news story from the past week. Again, you can join us for the live broadcast every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on the Roadshow YouTube channel. And I promise it doesn't hurt. And get this, it's free. So make sure you check it out. And with that, thank you again so much and have a great weekend.